Hello, my darling ghouls, and welcome to the Celluloid Crypt. I am your host with the silent G, your ghoul friend, Helena Handbasket, aka Kato. And this is the place where I talk to my friends about their favorite horror films. We have a very special activity for tonight. But first, before we get to that, I want to say that music tonight is by both Carl Casey and Tim over at tabletopaudio.com. The links are in chat, so please do check them out. They do such excellent work. If you would like to ask us a question at any point during this conversation, just type !question followed by a space and your question so it gets highlighted. And then that way my producer passes it along to me. As always, thanks to our lovely mods. We've got, I believe Raven and Varl will be here tonight, but we've certainly got Bleak in the background producing this show. So thank you, Bleak Season, for doing that. And tonight, I am very honored and delighted to be talking to a new friend, horror writer, editor, creator of the Native Horror Index. Please welcome Shane Hawk. Hi, Shane.
Hi.
Right in the middle of this.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.
Folks probably saw it on the advert, but we're going to be talking about Blood Quantum, which was the film that you chose. But we're going to spend a significant amount of time on Never Whistle at Night, which is the Indigenous horror anthology, dark fiction, that you're the co-editor on. Hey, look, there we go. I'm really excited to talk to you about this because I picked up this book and literally shot my shot on social media being like, do you want to come on this weird Twitch show that I do?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started with anything?
No, just excited to be here talking about, I think, one of the best Indigenous horror movies that we have. And it's, too bad that we lost Jeff. He could have done a lot more. He had two feature films. Could have done a lot more, but at least we got these two.
Yeah, fully agreed. Prior to our chatting, I hadn't seen it, hadn't heard about it, and I think first and foremost that's a shame because this should have gotten a lot more attention than it did. In terms of when you just Google and horror movies pop up, I thought this was a really fun get. For those of you who don't know, this film is called Blood Quantum, is written and directed by Jeff Barnaby, 2019 release. It was a Shudder original, and it is an Indigenous horror film. And Shane, you had talked while we were off camera before we started that there were some contextual things that you wanted to let the crowd know that had been surrounding this film and the story behind it. Do you want to enlighten us a little bit on some of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, this film explores, the common tropes that you see in zombie movies, as even references to Quentin Tarantino and such. A lot of reviews I've read from what I assume are non-natives is a lot of them are very surface level. And I think a lot of it is missed because they don't have the cultural context or historical context for what kind of informed this movie when Jeff was making it. And there's two specific things that are important to why this movie even exists. And so just to contextualize it, this movie takes place in basically near New Brunswick in kind of Quebec up. So for those that aren't really good at geography, think of the most northeastern point of the US and then just a little bit further than Maine. And that's where this Indigenous village is, the Mi'kmaq village. And so in 1981, there was some raids that happened in this small village, actually where Jeff was living. And so he was in his Mi'kmaq community, and this was back in 1981. And Quebec basically sent like hundreds of armed police into their peaceful community, all over salmon fishing. Okay, so the province basically decided to ignore like centuries old treaties and basically clamp down. But the Mi'kmaq said, no, this is our livelihood, this is our right. We have fishing rights, So the police raided the reserve twice, so 2 times. They tore through homes, they destroyed boats, they were beating people up like pretty severely. They're stealing their fishing nets. But the community didn't back down. They actually stood their ground, like you kind of see in this movie, at least defending the land, So they put their bodies on the line. They fought back to basically protect their sovereignty. And this kind of event, there's actually a 1984 documentary called Incident at Restigouche. Restigouche is the area. And it was basically state violence, which none of us are a fan of, that we see more in the United States going on. But the Mi'kmaq's like courage turned it into like a massive wake-up call for Indigenous rights across Turtle Island or North America. So I think that's the crux of it. That's like the main one, because Jeff, when he was younger, I'm not sure what age he was. We could just probably Google that, but so 1981, when those raids were happening, the village was so kind of isolated from settlers that the first time that he even came across a white person was when these armed policemen went into his village with rifles and such, and he actually was protesting, and he got hit with the rifle butt in the face. So that was literally the first time that he encountered the settler state, basically. So that's a very important historical context to know going into the film. There's also something 9 years later. It's called the Oka crisis. So this is 1990. It was actually in the summer, so that's basically when I was born. Almost 36 now. And this was in Oka, Quebec, and basically that town decided that they wanted to expand a private golf course and build condos, but they wanted to do it basically right over sacred Mohawk land, including like there was a historical pine grove that should not be touched and be respected, and also they wanted to dig up ancestral burial grounds. And so the Mohawk community basically said, no, I don't think so. And, they stood their ground. They set up a whole barricade to protect their land. And basically, instead of the government respecting their treaties, basic human rights, they sent in heavily armed provincial police with what they have. They had tear gas, and then it escalated into a violent, almost 80 days. I think it was 78-day standoff between the Canadian military and the people of this, the Mohawk of this town, this area. And so it was pretty bad. This was a whole, basically, settler state versus Indigenous, village or people. And this is where you get the kind of the term land defenders, because they're literally trying to defend their land. And so the police even brought in tanks. They had snipers, just really intense intimidation. Despite that, the Mohawk warriors basically, and they had allies too that were non-Mohawk, and I think even some non-native, but don't quote me on that. And they basically held the line. And so they faced the town, and they basically forced the town to say, okay, we're going to not do this golf course. And so it kind of proved to the entire world that Indigenous people will stop at nothing to defend their sacred territory, their land. And so I think it's very important to know about those two things before you even watch the movie, because it'll help. And then one more thing that's related to the Oka crisis is that there's a scene in the movie, which we'll get to maybe later, but there's a scene where they already have their whole, what do you call it? I guess a safe space compound, non-zombie zone, non-Zed zone. And they have a soldier. He still has his attire on, his helmet. He's zombified, and I think he's missing all his limbs, and he's hung up on chains, right?
I was laughing during that part, I'll admit.
So it was all intentional. There's a whole scene. he recurs a couple times in the film, right? But there's a specific scene with Kiowa Gordon, whose character was named Lysol, and we'll get to that too. But there's a scene where they're shot in profile, where you have the Kiowa Gordon on the left, and then on the right is this what you assume is a representation of the Canadian military. And so this was done on purpose because there was a famous, or I guess maybe infamous, either way, very popular photo that went around from the Oka crisis, I think called Face to Face. And you can Google that, Face to Face Oka crisis. And it circulated all around Canada. You know, this is kind of newer to me. Within the last 5 years, I learned about it, being way down here in San Diego. But I talked to a lot of Canadian Indigenous, and this photo was like everywhere. If you were Native or Indigenous, like you know about this picture. And the picture is basically during the Oka crisis. And it's funny because the Oka crisis was all about Mohawk land, right? But the Indigenous person on the right side of the photo that's in a face-off with a Canadian military, a troop, whatever you want to call him, soldier. He's actually Ojibwe, I think. Anishinaabe, if you want to use the umbrella term, but I think he was Ojibwe. I forget his name right now, but he's kind of has a face mask on, and he's like looking real tough, and he's just staring right in the barrel of the eyes of the Canadian troop. And the Canadian troop kind of looks scared shitless. And it is kind of a really awesome photo, you know, in a historical context, because it just shows that they're not backing down. They have allies that are, you know, helping defend the land, which is what we all would love to see, you know, more of. But I love that shot in the movie of the soldier and the Indigenous person, the actor Kiowa Gordon, but they kind of flip it, because now within this film we're about to explain, the Indigenous people are immune to this zombie disease, right? And so there's the other soldier on this side, so he kind of inverted that photo, that famous photo, to show that it's the Indigenous people on their land and they're protecting it still, but now it's the white outsiders that are trying to get in to save themselves and find safe space instead of just take over. They're trying to, you know. So I thought that was a really cool thing that probably not a lot of people would know about.
Thank you so much for giving us this history lesson. I think it's super important. I myself live in Montreal now, which is unceded Mohawk territory, and part of the second degree I'm currently getting in acting is we had a full year of reading plays by First Nations authors. It was Theater of Turtle Island, so and it was taught by Todd Houseman. He's Cree, and he's originally from Treaty 6 territory in what is known as Alberta for the English folks. But that education, I remember him telling us about the Oka crisis, and it's just, there's so many things that we just don't know through indoctrination in education that it's excellent to see pieces of work like this and read, you know, the anthology and learn these things, which are vital to our well-being and the history of all of us together. There's seriously a photo on screen from the face-to-face on the Twitch screen currently, so if people are interested in that, that is an incredible photo. Thank you so much for all of that detail.
Of course.
Just for a little context for anybody who hasn't seen the film, first of all, go check out this film. It's incredible. The idea being it is a small Indigenous community, as Shane said, in what is it's a fictional reserve, but in the New Brunswick area, in a fishing town that relies on fishing as the main source. And suddenly there is this infection that comes in. We first see it in one of the salmon that's caught, and then we see it in one of the dogs on the reserve, and then we start slowly seeing it. And as it continues, we see that this, what is later a zombie infection, we come to see the full zombie trope in full effect, that it only impacts white people. It does not, in fact, impact anyone who is Native or Indigenous. And as Shane was saying, that they're then seeking solace in this this area to get away from the zombies, but that all turns upside down in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, seriously.
What resonates in this film to you? Like, what do you like about it, and what speaks to you?
A lot, actually. You know, it's all connected to the little history lesson I guess I gave. I love that this movie is layered and not just surface level tropes, which I think a lot of people will probably just see and not know the history. So I love that Indigenous filmmaking a lot of the time is, I'll borrow this from my friend Ted Van Alst. A lot of it's like a Pixar movie. It's operating at two different levels. You know, Pixar movies are for the kids, but then there's also jokes and through lines and connections, references that are for the adults to keep entertained. We see Indigenous horror like this, where it's speaking to mostly Indigenous people first, of all different nations and tribes, in one level, which may not be picked up by a lot of the settler audience or non-native audience. So you're always trying to navigate that. And I love that this is basically, it's questioning the concept of blood quantum, which I can get into. My own tribes have blood quantum to be a member, an enrolled member. I love that it gets people talking about climate change, about respecting nature, not just taking over consumption. And also it tackles so many things. I mean, even Lysol, the character played by Kiowa Gordon, and if you don't know who he is, you might know him from Dark Winds. He plays Jim Chi, which is like almost in his 5th season now. And basically it's not, everything's, you know, told in dialogue, right? Everything's revealed. So you kind of learn that he was put through the foster care system, which is a big deal for Indian country or Turtle Island, where it kind of strips away everything. It's kind of like the new version of boarding schools, in that a lot of, well, up north it'd be reservation schools, or what am I saying? Residential schools, sorry. In that, you know, a lot of kids were stripped from their moms and dads, or, you know, or thinking that's going to be a good idea, but it's really not in the end. And, you know, the people in charge lie about stuff, whatever. And it's basically kill the Indian, save the man is the infamous line about assimilation and kind of beating and abusing your native culture out of you so that you could assimilate into kind of the monoculture of whatever might be white Christian nationalism. And so I could see a lot of stuff going into that, and Lysol's name being Lysol because, you know, Lysol is a harsh chemical that you use to clean and scrub things. It's essentially bleach. And that's what the foster care system does to so many Indigenous youth. And basically he was so removed from his Mi'kmaq community. That's why he was very resentful in the movie. And then sadly in the end, you know, things, you know, he's trying to protect this place and then things change. So I love that there's just so many layers and so many levels that is going on. And even the opening scene about the fish, the salmon, I thought the practical effects were great. You know, so simple, but man, it's effective. And I love that, gosh, I'm forgetting his name now, but his grandpa.
Yes, I am.
Joseph's grandpa.
Yes, I'm forgetting his name as well, but yes.
He's a badass in the movie. Wow.
So badass. With the katana, like, it's just,
yeah,
that was incredible.
Yeah, you don't have to reload a sword, right?
Yeah, right.
That's
exactly.
what he says in there.
And he's so good at it.
He's so good. Yeah, but even that opening scene of he's peacefully fishing, what he's done for, I think he said 60 years or 50
Yeah.
years he'd been
Yeah.
fishing just fine. And that's what a lot of this community lives on, sustainability and, sustenance is basically salmon.
Right.
And I love that the movie kind of opens with that, and it kind of centers you in this little village. And it's like you said, it's a fictional reserve, but it's also mirroring the real Mi'kmaq community up there.
Mm-hmm.
And how fish are basically a way of life for them, and now you see that they're infected. So there's plentiful fish. That's how they get their food up there mostly. But then also now it's all infected. So what's going to happen? I saw that also an illusion, because my tribes are from the plains. I see it also as an allusion to how the government kind of went after the buffalo and tried to hunt them to extinction, just so that a lot of my ancestors wouldn't have food and would die out. And I kind of saw that connection a little bit. I'm not sure if Jeff meant that, but I see, such an important food source for a community just ruined, and undead fish, I guess. And I don't know, there's so many layers. Like, if you know the history of the contact of Europeans going to that region of Canada, was it John Cabot that basically was the first? It's like 1497 or something. Went up there and kind of wrote in his journals about, oh my God, there's a whole bounty of cod. There's so much fish that we can bring it and feed the whole kingdom. And so I think this movie kind of, in a way, kind of a metaphorical bitch slap to John Cabot and the kingdom of Europe, basically the empire, in that Jeff kind of inverts the fish, and now the fish is not bountiful. There's nothing that you could use here now, and now it's spreading to the settlers that came. So yeah, I'm sorry, kind of randomly, but there's just so much about this movie.
Yeah, I'm really locked into what you're saying. It's just it just is. I've been turning it over and over in my brain a lot, and I had a note here about the symbolism of this gutted, alive yet dead fish, that they can no longer, that the source of the infection is coming from the fish, this being like the main food source, and that this, you mentioned it before about like climate change and climate crisis, and this sort of duality of having the animals impacted first, because we see the fish and then we see Harley, which is, I believe, Joss's dog.
Yeah.
And what does it mean as like fishing is the source of infection, and later they say that hunting and trapping is okay. This sort of like moving on to something that is not part of this community's culture, maybe necessarily.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure if the fish were kind of shown as the cause or the source, just that's where we first notice it. So in my mind, it's really the settlers that are the infected, and maybe what they're doing leads to the other animals dying off. So to me, that's also a metaphor for overconsumption, maybe overfishing, just poisoning waters with industrial waste. If you see in the movie, the whole town is like super industrial and just kind of gross looking from an indigenous perspective, with the buildings and all the smoke and
hazy. A big note that it was really hazy and foggy, and then it was that like 70s brown color was like so prevalent throughout the film, which I thought was fascinating.
I love the coloring that he used, and even the cinematography too, just so good. But I would say it's kind of just talking about how settlers kind of slowly poison food sources, ways of life, And I think the dog could be read as maybe, a man's best friend. Now it's like hurting the animals that are also their companions, or their allies, or their friends. And then, and then after, they spread everything, they're still kind of stuck on their land and stuck on this reserve, which I think beautifully changes toward the end. It's flipped. There's all this illusion of settlers coming onto their land, trying to get into that barricade, get into a little safe city, and trying to break in, which is, just like Contact, right? But then also in the end, spoiler alert, right? There's indigenous people that survive and they leave the reserve, which now the zombies are kind of on the reserves that indigenous people were forced to be on. And then now the settlers are there, and now the indigenous people that do survive, the resilient ones, the ones that are also lucky, because that's part of it, they're also going off to maybe reclaim other pieces of their land, to maybe set up, a new village on maybe their ancestral land or something. Because a lot of reserves are basically, sometimes they're based around where your people are from. A lot of times it's, displacement. So you're also moved to some total random place. Like my people, the Cheyenne and Arapaho, are originally from the Great Lakes region, but we're known as Plains Indians because of displacement and how we were kind of pushed. And we were also nomadic, but we were also, set up shop in Oklahoma, kind of pushed down there. So yeah, that's a big part of it.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the film's title. You had mentioned Blood Quantum. It's the name of the film. It is also this concept, which also would kind of lead me into a next point regarding the storyline of these white girlfriends. So I'd be interested to see how those maybe those two things can kind of blend together. But would you, I learned about Blood Quantum this past year. That was not something I, as like Lebanese and Irish, is not something I knew about. And I was wondering if you could take a second just to maybe explain to us what that is, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So Blood Quantum, essentially, we're talking about the legal concept, and I can't really explain like the full breadth of it, but the gist of it is it's colonial. It's not really invented by indigenous or native people. It's essentially a way of, it's kind of a result of Enlightenment thinking. Everything since the Enlightenment has had to be quantified and measured and like scientific in a Western way. And so this goes back to kind of, if we're honest, eugenics, and but kind of in a flip way, where the government will not treat you as a Native American or indigenous person unless you have this specific amount of quote unquote blood in your body. And by blood, it's not literal. It's, your ancestors, your family, your heritage, your lineage, your family tree, that were, part of that indigenous tribe or nation. And so it's really used to kind of quote unquote kill us off. Like we have a lot of discussions online and in person about Blood Quantum and how like terrible it is. My own tribe, Cheyenne and Arapaho, they practice it. I could see in some ways both sides of it, but to be an enrolled member, you have to have, well, before recently, it just literally recently changed to 1/8. So you had to be at least 1/4 Cheyenne or Arapaho to be enrolled and receive benefits. And the benefits aren't like, oh my God, free college, free this, free that. It's like, a little check here, a little check there, some, help with groceries and clothes and stuff. And then a little bit of help with like dental work if you go to an Indian Health Council, basically dentist, things like that. which are great. I'm not complaining. But I also want to kind of demystify the myth of like, oh, you're enrolled, so you get all these free stuff. I pay my tuition.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah. So sorry, I'm kind of like going all over.
No. This is like
to come back to blood quantum is a colonial concept to basically use the census, to use the government's tools to keep track of all Native Americans, and either to have them on their reservations or reserves, and to be considered part of those nations and tribes instead of kind of giving the autonomy to the nations and tribes themselves. Sadly, a lot of them have also chosen just to use the blood quantum measurement and all that. But I'm not sure how it is up north, but down here we have, federally recognized tribes. We have 574 now. And so to be a part of that, you have to go through kind of like these loopholes, or not loopholes, but you have to go through these hurdles of the government. You have to like meet these different standards. And so blood quantum is basically like if you have a white girlfriend, like in the movie, and you have a baby, say you are, I don't know, say you are a quarter this tribe, that nation, and you have a white girlfriend or a wife and you have a baby, that baby would not be enrolled in that nation. It would not be considered indigenous by the government standards.
Yeah.
By probably 95% of natives, they would say that baby is native. There's quite a few out there. They're like, a lot of natives are kind of like, not a lot, sorry, 5%, maybe 10% are really into that eugenics of like, keep the blood pure and, mixed race, natives are kind of like this or that. And I love that the movie kind of got into that at the end.
Yeah, it really got into it for sure.
But
just reminded me of Nick Medina's story Quantum in the anthology. That was like really fascinating.
Yeah, so that's Quantum is such a good story, and actually one of my favorites that I always think about. Because I have a white mother and I have a Native dad, and so identity issues and all that growing up, and not being this, not being that, enough of this, enough of that, it's always there, but I'm 36 almost now, and don't really care anymore. But it's quite different as an adult. But man, growing up was rough. But with the white girlfriends at the end,
we see two sets, right? We see there's the one character who's freaking out because she's pregnant and something's wrong with her. She's not okay. The trailer goes over and checks it out, and she's turned, and we see this horrific scene. Like the gore in this film is he went all out. It was pretty good. All out. Without getting into the nitty-gritty of the details, neither the child nor the girlfriend survives. But we see that one, and then we see the other side of it where Joseph's girlfriend, Charlie, I believe is her name, and she is, when we do the cut to 6 months later, she is very pregnant at the very end of the film. She has the baby, but she's been bitten, and we see the other side of that, of like, she doesn't want to turn, she wants to be killed before she is turned, and here's this child like not knowing a white mother, it just was really, I thought it was interesting that he would decide to put two storylines that end so differently in there.
I think an interesting thing, little concept that he was going for, a theme, is that yes, the indigenous people, the Mi'kmaq community here, are immune, right? It's kind of the first I think I've seen race or heritage based zombie virus. I'm not sure if I've seen another one, but I could look this up. But the yes, they're immune to the bites, they'll survive, right? They won't turn. but they're still susceptible to the violence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what he was going for there, was that, you know, even though we are strong and resilient people that can survive a lot of things, we've survived an apocalypse already, right?
Right.
And I think he makes allusions to the Holocaust as well in the movie with art. And despite all of that, you know, we're still very heavily susceptible to state violence, to just civilian violence that, you know, they're racist or don't want us around. And in the end, we can, you know, easily die that way. And so I thought with the first couple, where I think he was like coked out of his mind when the sheriff came to the house, which I get, because he's trying to make sense of everything, and maybe things are going badly and he just wants to escape in a way. That was my wife had to turn around for that part. I forgot about it, honestly, because I watched this back in 2020 my first time.
Yeah.
And we have a 2-year-old now. I was like, oof.
Different time.
Yeah. So with that one, I feel like I'm still trying to understand what he was trying to say. The father that ends up dying, the native dad, he was saying she's trying to feed the baby, but it doesn't have a mouth.
Yeah.
So maybe I was trying to think of, like, was it born without a mouth? Because it's, if we're going to use this kind of Enlightenment thinking, half native, half white, baby is like the native part of it, like not wanting to spread the virus, you know? I was trying to get on with that
sooner, and then this was a change that happened in utero.
Yeah. And then of course, you know, babies can't defend themselves, and she's a zombie locked in a room, so she did what she did, sadly. But then the last one goes back to the idea of quantum and blood quantum, and that the girlfriend is white, right? And then the dad, Joseph, which is the sheriff's son, they have a baby. They even think about aborting it, right? Earlier in the film. That's like a big thing that it's like a weird issue with Native men and with white passing girlfriends or wives, is this idea of, am I contributing to less native, bringing less native babies into the world? And some, you know, this is like a thought some people go through. And, you know, is it eventually going to become, you know, from 1/2 to 1/4 to 1/32 to 1/64 to, you know, huge fraction, or a tiny fraction, I mean. And so with that girlfriend and him at the end, basically the mom passes, but the baby survives. And then the dad and his mother, who actually, his mom, what's her name? Shoot. She was
is the character, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember her real name though. Elle? She was a narrator for Never Will Slow Night, and she might be again for part 2.
Oh no, we love it.
Yeah,
that's great.
But in the end, you know, I see that the white mom died, but then the baby survived, and now that the basically 3 natives, you know, with the mom, son, granddaughter, going to float off into that boat and, you know, reclaim, you know, another piece of their land possibly, and set up maybe a new civilization or something. It's kind of hopeful at the end, even though it's very tragic. There's like a flip there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Going back to what you had said about while the native people in this film are not susceptible to the virus, they are violence.
Mm-hmm.
It's so impossible to miss the massive graffiti on the camp wall when we do cut to the 6 months later after this kind of apocalyptic virus has spread. And it says, if they're red, they're dead. If they're white, they bite.
Yeah.
And we see that. And then right after that, Charlie has been helping folks to, get them to camp, and brings this father and his like young daughter who's wrapped in a blanket, who's been bitten, and the blanket is covered in blood. And they're saying she has to be put down, essentially, I think is one of the phrases that they use with her. And then the symbolism of the blanket, and James grabbing the blanket and saying it needs to be burned.
Yeah. What the fuck are you doing? You can't bring that in here.
Yeah. That part was like, I think, like you were saying, that there are these Easter eggs of like, what level do you know of like what's happened to First Nations and Indigenous people, Native American people in Turtle Island, and like, how does that, when do you catch those moments? And that was one of them for me. That's certainly one that we did learn in school, aside from all the other stuff we didn't learn,
Yeah, I think down here they don't even really teach that. I only know that because I'm Native and I have, parents to tell me stuff. Yeah, even though, I don't think historically we've ever proven that smallpox blankets were a thing. For the audience, if you don't know about this, there's a myth that it's kind of like, it's true, a lot of the millions of natives across this entire continent were decimated by disease and uncleanliness from settlers coming here and basically trying to kick us out and kill us. And the smallpox blanket, is kind of a symbol of, them kind of like gifting us something, and then it eventually is like this terrible thing that kills us in the end. And so I thought it was really interesting inclusion, where it's the white person coming in with the zombie blood all over the blanket, and then the Native person being like, we don't want this, I thought it was both darkly funny, but then also, enlightening for a lot of non-Native folks. I'm still trying to also interpret the graffiti, where it said, if they're red, they're dead. If they're white, they bite. Second part's easy to understand.
Yeah.
But with the first part, I'm thinking, if Zeds or zombies are undead, is it just saying that the natives are, it's like hopeless a little bit and they are gonna be dead? Are they, they're at the end of the world basically, right? And are they just kind of counting down the days until they're just taken and they're just taken over? You do see quite a few of them turn on their community, sadly.
Yeah. I'd love to talk to you about that. I have this quote here from Moon, who's one of kind of the older men in the community, who he's talking in the Mi'kmaq dialect, and says the earth is an animal living and breathing, and that the planet is sick and it's turning these white men into fertilizer. And then we see Moon and James and Lysol apparently doing this thing to help cleanse the community, but it really is turning their backs on the community. And we just see this like heel turn, like you kind of see it with Lysol because he's kind of just an asshole throughout a lot of it, but we just see this quick turn, and just the fact that he stabs his best friend, and then we're off to the races with him letting one of the Zeds into the camp. What are your thoughts on this? Was just such a like, what the fuck moment when I was watching this. What are your thoughts?
Moon, he was played by Gary Farmer. Gary is so good. He's awesome. That was a great line from him. Turning the white people into fertilizer. I think he was just trying to rationalize what was happening, right? And he was trying to make sense of it. And I think there's Indigenous people in different communities that they want everything, either perfect, and then, or else burn everything down if it's not perfect in a way. And, this is probably true to a lot of different other communities too, where, there's kind of purists that want to just kind of end stuff. So I think they kind of flip in a way, because there are natives or indigenous people in your community or in your state or wherever you want to call it, your tribe or nation, that really let you down, that do things that are nonsensical and are not, part of the ways. You don't want to castigate them too much, but also, what are you doing? So I think Jeff was trying to show that there are natives that will that are either just, they become kind of helpless, because there's so much trauma, intergenerational trauma, and then they're tired of trying to be resilient and fight for their land and their people, and they just end up helping the settlers come in and destroy everything. They could also just be very resentful of decisions that were made by the sheriff and others about, first letting those folks in, especially the one that ends up, eating Kiowa Gordon's dick. There's a scene
such a brutal scene, and I did not see it coming.
Yeah, you won't see that usually in a lot of horror films, but yeah, Jeff went there because he kept alluding to, getting, oral
Getting
and all
head
that
from her. Yeah. It was so cool to see how he went there. And not only are there, like you were saying, the Pixar movie, like the conversation of like what we see and then like what's for the other, like the actual intended audience, but just how much of a horror buff he is. Like we get the massive wood chipper on the bridge, which is an Evil Dead reference. We get the new chainsaw, and then that perfect line when they called the zombie Zeds, and he's holding up the head. I think it's the grandfather's holding up the head and said Zed's dead, and we get the Pulp Fiction reference.
Pulp Fiction.
That was just cool to see. Like you could tell that Jeff was such a cinephile. Like he just loved film, and I think he captured it in terms of, he went there with the gore, he went there with the story, and I think he also this use of animation I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't look into that I really want to learn, like who animated it and what was the inspiration, but the animations were lovely. I really like those.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I have a question for you, just as a viewer of this film. Do you think that Trailer was always destined to die?
Oh man, I think, I'm not sure if it was destiny or fate, but he seemed to be a very damaged man, and we don't know. He's kind of teaming up in the movie with his ex-wife, and he has one son that, I guess technically his son, right, because he went into foster care, and even Lysol yells at him, "Sperm donor." So I was trying to think of whether he did just donate sperm and then, surrogate mom. Not sure. It was never explained. And then he grew up separately in the foster care system outside of this community. That's why he's so resentful and like wants to protect the people, but then also he's kind of like a fuck it all doomer kind of thing going on. He's just so angry, and you kind of get that in different communities where people are just so disconnected and put through these settler colonial systems that chew you up and spit you out, and you're lost. It's hard to get a good start somewhere, and you're just full of resentment. And how do you fix that? Is there a way to fix that? Without therapy and stuff in this apocalyptic world.
Sorry,
I'm not sure you can.
This zombie fight. I got at 1 o'clock with my therapist. Like, not gonna happen.
Right. So with Trailer dying, man, I didn't want it to happen.
Yeah, I didn't.
Because he was trying to hold it down. He's like all people, we're complicated. We have we might have dark moments, dark pasts, you don't know what he went through in his childhood. You don't know if he went to a residential school. I'm not sure. I didn't notice in any lines that they kind of brought that up, but that's a reality for a lot of people. You know, the last one technically closed in, I think, 1996, and this took place in 1981. So
Right. So they
maybe
would have
Trailer
been
was,
yeah.
maybe Trailer did grow up in one, or was forced to go in one, and face his own abuse, and then maybe that's why he didn't really connect with either of his sons. The one that he, either if he gave up to the foster care system, I think more he was just a donor, so he's the genetic dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other son, Joseph, he didn't seem that connected with him either, and he was acting out. He was on that bridge shitting on that lady's car, which is pretty funny.
It was
and he was acting out. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And yeah, that was gross. But I think, you know, and he even says that because that was like multiple times he's been arrested. He got arrested for that shitting on the lady's car. And I think they'd been arrested quite a few times, and he was like a regular at this jail, right? And then Michael Greyeyes, he says, his character says, yeah, I mean, I think he just thinks he has a fucked up dad, so he kind of justifies it, right? So I think he's acknowledging that he's not a great dad, and he's, you know, probably done a lot of bad things, but he's also this like leader, this sheriff that's trying to hold the fort, and hold the fort. There you go. Why'd I even say that? It's colonialism right there.
Yeah,
Shit.
I mean, we just like, we say it all the fucking time.
Yeah.
All those phrases that come up.
So yeah, I'm not sure if he was destined to die, but I think his death was in a way earned, because, you know, he was trying his best, but then in the end, you know, he did kind of fuck up a lot of stuff, because he also kind of gave the approval to bring those people into the compound,
right?
And so in a way he was trying to protect his people, but then I also love that in this film that they show Indigenous people at the end of the world are even still willing to help non-natives, just like pre and in contact natives did to settlers, trying to help them with hunting, with, you know, planting crops and ways to live, you know, and trade networks. We were, even though that's not the case for every single tribe and nation, but there were a lot of instances of trying to be peaceful and trying to do the right thing, but obviously we know what happened in the end. So I think that was a really cool part of the film too. But then in the end, Trailer just, I guess, pretty bad death too.
Yeah,
gets ripped apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple more points, unless there are other things that you wanted to talk about with this film before we transition over to the book. This, I'm flipping the order on these, but the grandfather's choice to stay, I just felt, I got chills when I was watching that. It was so, and then we had that beautiful cut of the animation. We get that voiceover from the actor as well. What were your thoughts on that moment?
That is, you know, quintessential native warrior, Indigenous warrior that wants to stand his ground. He represents the people of that Mi'kmaq community that were standing the ground against the government, against basically the fascists that were going in there and trying to mess up with salmon fishing rights, and also the protesters and people of the Oka crisis. And those are also two historical incidents that, you know, caused waves of Indigenous support, but then it also is an allusion to all Indigenous fights for land rights, fishing rights, water ways, water protectors. I thought it was a beautiful moment, and that he was such a damn like tough dude with that samurai sword, and he just refused to back down, and I think that's really lovely to see. Even if it's a zombie film, he's willing to kind of sacrifice himself to still protect the land, and that's what a lot of our ancestors did. I've had ancestors, die at different massacres down here in the United States, and they were well, both, they were ambushed, not actually trying to fight. Then I've had other ancestors that died, fighting to the death and just trying to hold their ground. A lot of like, if you know about the Cheyenne military societies, I can't really talk about them much, but what's out there already is the dog soldiers, and basically pretty fucking badass warriors that when enemies would come into their territory, they'd basically get a rope and tie it around their ankle with a dagger at the end, or and plant it into the ground, and they would kind of hold their literal ground right there and fight until they won or not. And I think that was a badass kind of choice for the grandpa.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
My last point on this was there's the juxtaposition that we talked a bit about it with Joss and Joseph and Charlie's body and this newborn child in the boat, and that's what we get before that. We get the blackout at the
Yeah.
end of film, but just before that, we have this big end scene in a church with Lysol and James and Moon and these two opposing sides of the same community, and the fact that it's all in a church.
Mhm.
What were your thoughts while you were watching that movie, or that scene, rather?
That scene. Yeah, I kind of interpreted it in a way that it was the church kind of splitting the community, in that missionaries go into different lands, they try to spread their gospel and religions, and it has taken on quite a few natives and different tribes and nations across the whole continent, whole world. For better or worse. I won't say a bunch on the religion of Christianity, because I want to be respectful to people, because there's quite a few of my tribe that are Christian or subscribe to like Native American church that is a blend of Christianity and practices over here. But I do believe Jeff was trying to show that, he purposely put it in a church, I think, because, to show that they were splitting them up. And there was ones that would, start thinking this way and like, let's follow basically the settler way, and let's, modernize, or let's give up our languages and let's do English and all this kind of thing. Let's assimilate, and then no, let's keep our ways and be traditional, or at least mostly, if we can, stay traditional and stick to our ways. And I think that's why he chose the church, because the church is kind of it's a very dark history across the whole continent and the whole world, if we know history, but especially for Native peoples in this land. And I think that's kind of what he was going for with that. But we can't really say, because we can't ask him, sadly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on the film? Any other points that you'd like to bring up, or moments that stood out to you? Or
I love that. I love the music, because Jeff basically made it. So he wrote, directed, edited it, and he did the whole, hour and a half soundtrack.
incredible.
And I read in an interview that, he was so worried about the budget, and he was like, fuck, I'm not going to pay someone $50,000 for a song that no one's going to even pay attention to. So I think he had, I forget the whole list of instruments, but he had quite a few with his drums, and he was just making shit up.
That's
the whole
incredible.
time.
Oh my God. Wow, I love that.
Yeah. So I love the music there with Jeff. And then he also, you could feel, he's inspired by Carpenter
Yeah.
because a lot of it's kind of synth heavy here and there. So I love that. So you really feel like it's in late 70s, early 80s, horror movie in the Carpenter realm.
Yeah.
But yeah, just, check out this movie. It's on Shudder still, I believe. I own it, so I'm not sure if it's still on there. But it's worth your time. Please look into the history. And watch Jeff's other film. Shoot. Of course, it's not. My brain's not working.
Swift Google.
Something. Yes. Rhymes for Young Ghouls. I had two of the words, but shoot. Rhymes for Young Ghouls. Yeah. Devery Jacobs is also in that. Another great one. Where I think he, honed his skills a lot more with this new one, but that's a really great one to look into as well. But yeah, just watch this movie. Please check it out. It's worth your time. I promise.
Yes, it is absolutely worth your time. Ringing endorsement. Thank you so much for bringing this to the Crypt to show it. Like when you pitched it, I was like, this sounds incredible. So thank you for that.
And also,
go ahead.
If you're very sensitive to, if you use like the website, does the dog die? Yes, the dog does die in the beginning.
Yeah.
So just know that.
Yeah. I had a moment, as soon as she popped up, I was like, oh, that dog's dying. Bummer.
Yeah.
I was like, as soon as I saw the fish happen and then I saw the dog happen, I was like, okay, here we go. Buckle up. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a bit brutal. But it's worth the watch. It's incredible. So thank you for that.
Definitely.
Let's talk about Never Whistle at Night.
Woo!
So excited. Holding this up we'll hold it up and you can point behind you. I grabbed this book by chance. I'm a huge, if you couldn't figure it out by now, I'm a huge horror buff, but I'm also like an avid reader. I'm usually reading like 4 books at a time. And I took this book with me out to Mont Tremblant, which is like out in the woods of Quebec, when we like rented an Airbnb and there was no one around. And I was like, this is the scariest thing I could possibly be reading right now.
Perfect.
It's such an incredible read. How did this book come together?
Oh man. Well, back in 2020, it all happened so fast. I just entered the horror scene in like Halloween 2020 because I had a lot of time during the pandemic. But basically, a native book reviewer posted a tweet and it said, when are we going to get a native horror anthology? And so I was intrigued because, I'm a native horror writer. And so, it made the rounds. People were replying and, commenting. There was like a lot of, it was like probably like 20 something, 30 something comments. And I tagged Ted Van Alst, who's my co-editor of the series. And we were like excited just about, hey, maybe someone will take care of this and we'll get to read it, or maybe even be invited or send a story for it to maybe get accepted. At first, we were definitely not thinking about it was going to be us, doing it. And then so that tweet was like December, I feel like it was December 10th. And then 2 days later, I got COVID, like the earlier strain, and it was a really bad time where my mom was in the hospital and I was taking care of my special needs brother, and he caught it as well.
Oh,
and so, so right when she got out, basically I caught it, I think, from my brother, and then I had to go to the hospital for a little bit, and then I came home, 3 weeks, oxygen concentrator, whatever. So it was like the closest to death I felt, even though I don't think I was going to die. It was just, I couldn't breathe at all. So it was tough. And I think in that time, I was doing a lot of reflecting. I had 5 days of insomnia and hallucinations and shit, and kind of visions and stuff. And it kind of like, I don't know, it was weird. I wouldn't say ego death because I didn't experience that, but
Sure.
it was pretty intense
Yeah.
stuff I was seeing and hearing and all this sort of stuff. And basically, trying to shorten up the story, but
No, please,
um,
please, as long as you want.
I was always super shy and timid and kind of afraid to talk to people and just stuck to myself. And in that kind of span of 3 weeks, and I was just like, I'm only going to live once, and should I do it in this kind of shy, as a shy guy? And I just kind of broke out of that shell and I said, hey, maybe I can take this idea on,
Yeah.
and maybe I can somehow get this going. And so I started kind of cold DMing and emailing like pretty prominent established Indigenous authors. Like the first one I reached out to is Tommy Orange. And he and I are in the same tribe, the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And I already had contacted him before because this is when Twitter was awesome and you could actually use it and talk to people and connect. And I sent him a copy of my short story collection and signed it because it was his birthday. And he actually read it and blurbed it. And so we were kind of like talking a bit here and there. So he was the first one I approached. I was kind of nervous, because it's a Pulitzer Prize finalist. And he's like, yeah, this sounds cool. I'll write a story. And it kind of was this very small concept of, hey, maybe, an invite thing, and we'll get, I don't know, 10 people and we'll do this cool little self-published or like an Indiegogo Kickstarter book happening. Some really scary stories from some cool names.
Yeah.
And then I kept asking, new DM to someone else, and then kept asking, and everyone just kept saying, yeah, okay, cool, sounds good, count me in. And then one of the last people I asked was Sheree Demeline, and she was one of the only people I had to contact through an agent. And so I contacted the agent in the email and did the whole spiel, tried to be professional. And she was like, hey, Sheree would love to be in this anthology idea thing. Do you have representation? And I didn't really know what that meant at the time. So, I'm kind of dumb. So I Googled that and I was like, oh my gosh, she's offering to be possibly my literary agent. This is what people dream of,
right?
For years. And it's kind of like falling into my lap. I'm so grateful. But she asked for me to send her a Noka, which is my story collection, and then to have a phone call. So she loved the writing and she was like, oh my gosh, this is a big idea. You need to do something serious. And she said, you're going to write a proposal, and then I'm going to take that proposal and shop it wide to the industry. And I said, okay, cool. And so she got permission from Jeff Vandermeer and Anne Vandermeer so I can read their original proposal for the Weird Compendium, because they curated a huge thicky boy of a anthology of weird fiction from like 1910 or something to a modern day. And I got to look at the actual proposal they wrote, and that helped a lot. A different anthology proposal. And then wrote this thing up. It was like 8 pages. And, I was substitute teaching at the time. So I was like really trying hard to like work at night, after a tiring day. She sent it out. She was sending us updated like screenshots of her spreadsheet. And it was like a lot of instant, like interested or reading and wants to call. Then we went into, we lined up like 5 different phone calls with these editors at different places. Wow. And I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. And I was substitute teaching, right? So before going on like my assignments, I asked really nicely of the secretary of the school. I was like, hey, I have this serious thing going on. Can I use the conference room to like do this phone call?
Yeah.
And it would be like a phone call with, the first one was an indie press, and then it was like Tor Nightfire, actually maybe I shouldn't say the names, and then it was, these other big 5 ones. And I was like, oh my God, so I was in this conference room, just pacing back and forth, these are across a week or 2. And then we land with Vintage Books of Penguin Random House. and she was just saying all the right things. We were very adamant about including emerging or new writers in it.
Right.
And that was in my proposal. We said at least 7, because we were also kind of on eggshells. Like, is 7 a lot? We have no idea what we're doing.
Not even knowing what the number was. Yeah.
No. So we said 7 at least. Or we didn't say at least, we just said 7. And she said, are you guys married to that number? Because what if you get 8, 9, or 10 like amazing stories? And we're like, oh, she understands what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And so we were just like so excited. And then she came back with an offer, and it was Vintage Books in New York, and then McClellan and Stewart and Random House Canada. Like all 3 came together for a global deal. So like US and Canadian editions.
Wow.
And this all happened in the span of like, I entered the scene October 2020. That tweet was like early December, COVID stuff. And then I was emailing Tommy Orange like late December after Christmas.
Wow.
And then, January was doing stuff, and then talked to Rachel Latofsky, who's my agent still and probably forever. That was like mid-January, and then wrote that thing, I think, late February, March, edits, sent it out, and then calls were like May, and then we sold it like June, and then we announced July 2021. And right when we announced the book, that's also when the open call started. So we were trying to like make it as smooth as possible. And so yeah, right from then we were accepting stories July 2021 to November 1st, 2021. And it was a wild time.
Yeah.
So exciting.
That's so incredible. I was just about to ask, how long did it take from like conception to publish?
Yeah, it was just that short.
That is wild and incredible.
Yeah, it was insane.
You contributed one of the stories in here, Behind Colin's Eyes, which really, really loved. Kudos to you on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
What inspired this story? Where did this come from?
Yeah, so Behind Colin's Eyes, a little silly wordplay on being colonized, because it's a possession story. So this comes from a Hawk family story. My original story was a little, I guess, too revealing, and my grandma said no. So I had to rewrite this like last minute in like a week. So I was like, oh my God. But this kind of blends the first story without all the details, and then this new story. And pretty much 80% of it's true. This is my dad as a 10-year-old with my grandpa Hawk. At the time, my paternal side of the family lived in northeastern Utah in Tridell, and they hunted their food, and it was really cold, and so they would, all the details that I included in there, like even his dog was named Tiny. My dad's name is Clay, but he didn't want me to use his name, so I said Colin. And I changed some names, but they're very similar to the real names. The comic book that he's reading in the beginning was a real comic book that my dad was reading that winter, and I found it on eBay and bought it, a copy, and then I had it like on my desk while I was writing the story. It was just really cool. I got to basically collaborate with my dad and kind of bring to life my grandpa Hawk, who passed when I was in high school. And it was kind of a way it was like a gift for me to my dad to kind of I don't know if maybe that's the right word, but immortalize my grandpa in this little specific moment, even though it's a little horrific, of a real hunting trip that he'd been on. And he was obsessed with comics like that, and the spinning rack and all those details, his bike. And yeah, so basically it comes from a family story where they were hunting this one winter, and they shot this elk just right dead center where you're supposed to do it, in the center mass. And it just kind of angrily turned at them, and it didn't go down, and it started running. And they were chasing after it, because it was going to be a pretty damn huge amount of meat, and they just ran after him. And it got pretty far ahead where it was getting blurry. Wouldn't say he was on two legs maybe, but they were following the trail, and then there's blood drippings all the way, and then all of a sudden there's no more hoof prints in the snow, and there's no blood trail. It was just nothing. And then that's where they stop. You're like, we don't know. So yeah.
Wow.
And then in the beginning, the creature is outside, and the dog pens are real. That's how like the house was set up. And different story. Yeah, I can say it and not write it down, but they got visited by a Bigfoot-like creature. And it went around the dog cages and was like making them yip and go crazy, and they got quiet.
Ooh, and even worse.
Yeah. And then just kind of like big strides, kind of saw it through the windows, and it was going around the house. And my grandpa just like shot up and got he got a shotgun, and my dad, he was 10 and a half, and he had his own rifle. And back in the day, you'd have it on your wall right there. So they got on the wall and they ran out, and it was just going way too fast. Like the strides were so huge, off into right behind the house is kind of a foresty area, and just into the dark. And my dad just remembers my grandpa just shooting it, and the sparks and the loud noise, and just it going away.
Wow.
But yeah.
Oh my God. That's chilling.
So I kind of blended those two stories, and I kind of cranked the horror a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, even just hearing you tell them, kind of offhandedly, it was like, oh, got me with goosebumps. But yeah, your story was definitely very riveting. I was very, very taken by it. Definitely had a lot of like Stephen Graham Jones, The Only Good Indians, kind of parallels to the storytelling and the writing, that I was just like, wow, that is really cool. So
yeah, and it's so weird because he essentially kind of made me a writer in that. I read Mongrels in 2019, and then Mapping the Interior, and I was like, oh my God, I'd like to try this. This guy is native, not my same tribe, but he's native. He's doing horror that I love. And Mapping the Interior was so short, it's a novella, and I was like, maybe I could do this. Not at that caliber, but I could try to like make up some cool stories. And then I almost started that year, but I entered the teaching credential program, and that was like living hell. And so I started in the pandemic the next year. But so, and now we're like, we have each other's numbers and we text and stuff. It's weird. It's crazy.
That's so wild. There's like people that you look up to, and then suddenly you're just friends with them. It's like,
yeah,
I feel like horror does that. Like horror just brings people together like that in cool ways.
Yeah, seriously. Just everyone's, 99% of people are like amazing in the horror community.
Yeah.
And you could get their number and just casually talk and just bring up stuff and just talk, and especially going to StokerCon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's awesome to catch up with people. I'm excited for Comic-Con this week, and then
SDCC?
WorldCon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I love it. Do you have a favorite story in the anthology, aside from your own, but do you have one that like really has kind of just like lived in the back of your mind since you read it the first time?
Yeah, quite a big handful, but the ones that kind of keep returning in the back of my mind are Quantum, like I said earlier, with Nick Medina, in that it really spoke to me as I don't like to use the term mixed, because it kind of goes back to that quantification kind of thing.
Yeah.
But someone that has, a native dad, a native white mom, and then the amount of whatever it says on my card that the tribe gives me, and then it also spoke to me in ways that I feel for different communities and different people that are affected by colonialism. Like the mother that in that story that basically treats the two siblings differently, and the one that has
Wildly.
more, more native blood, is cherished, right? And the other one is just like treated like an animal almost.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, if not colorism, whatever term that's going to be for, you're still a Native American, but a different, I don't know what you want to call it. That very much exists in a lot of communities. It's very sad to see, where there's, Afro-Indigenous people, there's, white natives, light-skinned natives, all sorts, right? Natives that are also, also other backgrounds. And there's a lot of strife in different communities, and at large, the online community. It's sad to see, but we try to navigate all of that and try to be the best that we can be, but that story always kind of returns to the back of my mind. And then also Kushtuka, which opens the anthology. Once that was I guess I didn't mention in the beginning that half the book is open call stories. It was like 12 and 12, and then 2 stories from the editors. And man, when we got that one, we were like, hey, that's the opener. It's got to be. And I love that Matilda has expanded that into a novel that I got to blurb, and it comes out this October. It looks like You in the Dark, Tor Nightfire. So excited for people to start reading that. So that story really stuck out, especially because we were like, hey, this has to be the opener. And then I guess if we want to do a third one, Collections by Amber Blazer Wardzala.
God.
Yeah. So that's really, is a little on the nose, but, for a certain effect on purpose, it's, I'm trying not to spoil these stories, but also kind of like entice people. But, think about how hunters have, dead animal heads on their walls, what might be in this white professor's house.
Right. It also had that dark academia bent, which I thought was pretty neat. That really was great.
You can tell that she's involved in academia.
It was so funny to read the author blurbs, like the bios after, to figure out just like culturally what nation or tribe they're from, but also like what area of the world, what their background is. Like there's the one author who's an oceanographer.
Darcy Little Badger.
It was just cool to see how all of that was kind of interweaving in terms of the storytelling as well.
Definitely. It's cool to see their background and see how that maybe affects their story.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit about part 2, Back for Blood. It's coming out in a month, I think, almost exactly. Is that right?
Let's see. Today's the 20th, so August 18th. So 29 days. Yes. We're so excited. This one cranks it up a notch. So a lot of people with the first one, we didn't really know what we were doing with the first one, to be honest, and we're grateful that it exploded like it did. But we also didn't want to be too, not forceful, but too, I guess, demanding with the established authors, because Ted's more prominent than me, but like, kind of, who are we to kind of, that's how we felt, kind of. And so we were very lenient with how the stories are written and the themes and such. So some of them don't really, I guess, go into the box of horror fiction, and some of them are more in that umbrella term dark fiction. So that's why we used it for the marketing. The subtitle is An Indigenous Dark Fiction Anthology. The second one, though, we use the word horror because there's a lot more blood, more creatures, more hauntings, and we kick it up a notch for sure. And this one is This one is 5 fewer stories, so we were a little harsher with our curating. We really wanted to make. We were scared of the first one being so big as it is and so widespread across the continent, actually the world, to be honest. And you always are scared of a sophomore slump, whether you're a filmmaker, editor, author, musician. And so we really wanted to make sure all these stories were just like so like hitting the mark, and so I think it does. And I got to do the story order for this one, and I was trying my best to do it in a way, because the first book story order is all about geography. If anyone looks up like the authors and stuff and where their people are from, it starts up in the Alaska Native territory, right, and then it goes all the way down, and then it ends back up with Wapkichig rice. And so with the second one, I was paying more attention to like theme overlap, kind of treating it like a roller coaster. So I was trying to, find the tension points and the styles of storytelling and trying to balance it all. But I think we did a good job with the story order to kind of like make people just keep on reading, and so excited for it. We're actually in the middle of audiobook production.
For the second one?
Yeah, for the second one. And quite a few people from the first one are possibly going to be in this second one for the audiobook, which the first audiobook had 9 different Indigenous narrators.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying our best to just keep everything Indigenous as possible.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. That's so incredible. Congratulations. This is
Thank you.
So exciting.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I had some kind of general questions, unless there's more that you'd like to tell us about either anthology, the first one, or the one that's upcoming. But yeah.
I guess tiny little braggart points, just kind of for fun.
Please.
If you don't follow me on social media or know about me until this episode, Nevertheless at Night, the first one, it was recently on Netflix randomly. So on the Netflix produced show The Four Seasons, it's a dramedy with Tina Fey and Will Forte and such. It's like in a beach scene. What is it? It's season 2, episode 3, I believe, and it's got like a whole minute of screen time across this episode, and like it's at the beach and he's kind of flipping through it. You see the cover a little bit. If you know the book, you recognize it, but maybe not other people. But then later, later on in the episode, characters in bed reading, right, as we all do, and the camera is just slowly zooming in on the cover, and it's like 10 straight seconds of the cover, and it's just so amazing. And there's so many comments on social media and messages and be like, hey, I just watched this episode and I just checked out the book and it's so cool. And this just happened recently within the last, I think, month or so. So that was cool. And then we found out that the first book, Never Was That Night, is in the president's reading room at the Obama Presidential Center in Southside Chicago.
Yeah, it is.
So that's a newly opened one, literally a month ago. So on Juneteenth, he opened this amazing presidential center, Southside Chicago, and in it actually includes a real branch of the Chicago Public Library system.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of books in there, right, that you can check out and leave like an actual library. But then there's a special little room called the President's Reading Room, and Never Was That Night was handpicked to be in there by the Obamas.
Wow.
And that was just amazing. And that you can't check out those books in there. You can walk in, like maybe flip the pages and look at stuff, but it's forever kind of immortalized in that presidential library, in that president's reading room. So that was really cool to see.
Oh man, that is so cool.
Yeah, we love seeing that, and that's like 3 years after it came out. So like, we love all the stuff that's happening.
Yeah. I lived in Chicago for 13 years. So when I reached
Awesome.
out to Ted as well, because Ted has said that he's also going to come on the show,
Okay, cool.
which is super exciting. But I was like, hey, Chicago fam, like, so that was
Nice.
seeing that. Knowing that the center had opened on Juneteenth, I was there in Chicago when it happened, and it was
Oh, cool.
a huge celebration, which was so cool. But to know now that like this book has been featured there is just so mind-blowing how that's all connected, and it warms
it's
my heart.
wild.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, and Ted
great.
discovered that because he'll often check like the library systems in Chicago and just like Never Whistle at Night, his own books, and just see like how many are checked out and holds and all that. Because it's fun for us to like check this stuff.
Yeah.
And then he saw one that was like non-circulatory, and then he saw like the little detail and it said Obama Presidential Center reading room. And we're like, what? So that was really cool. And I even reached out to them. I wrote a message to the president. We'll see if I hear anything back. But then also I messaged the foundation, and I said, hey, I don't live there. Can you guys, maybe staff member, please, if they could, like take a picture of it, just on the shelf or something. And they got back to me within like a week, and like 2 librarians were just like,
wow.
And I posted that. I had to post that, but that was cool. So yeah,
cool.
it's just so lovely. So awesome.
Yeah. Excellent. So amazing. So many congrats. I mean, it's so cool
Thank
that,
you.
This started in 2020 as just like hey, I'm just going to do this. And now
I'm dying of COVID. Like, oh, let's get some horror stories out there.
I'm having so many hallucinations. Let's write some horror.
It was crazy. Yeah,
Wow.
I saw all sorts of stuff.
Jeez. But yeah, it's so cool to see like this was 3 years since it came out, so 6 years total that it's like still going, and it's still got a lot of traction, and now the second one's coming out. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and we're waiting on part 3 to hear back about this, like this week, I think. So there's that too.
This is like my Christmas. It's just hearing about more horror books coming out. This is incredible. What?
Yeah, we can't wait.
I just want to ask you some questions about you as a writer and as a person. What drew you to horror in the first place?
Oh man. So as a reader, I didn't really read it as an adult until I was like 26. And that's due to, as a kid, getting those assigned text in high school especially, I really distanced myself from reading after like one too many essays that I actually didn't use Spark Notes for, or Cliff Notes, I think. But yeah. But I grew up. Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I grew up with Goosebumps, all the stuff that we all grew up with, right? I read all that. I didn't really actually read Stephen King as a kid, which I guess I still end up fucked up anyway. But 26 is when I returned to college because I kind of flunked out, kind of like stopped going. Then I went back 26 and I was reading all these texts and whatever. But anyway, I started reading it, and it was like 50 books that year, and then it was 200 the next year, and then 250, and then that became like kind of an average. It's definitely gone down since having a kid. Sure. But those were amazing days. I would always have like a Kindle version. I would have a paperback with me, and I would always have an audiobook.
Yeah.
So I was always doing at least 3.
Yeah.
And those were the days I was delivering pizza. Anyway, yeah, for horror fiction, I just came across it mostly, to be honest, my wife.
Yeah.
Of course, I've always heard of Stephen King. I've always heard of, different horror writers. I was in that kind of college, like, craziness of the essays, but then she kind of started slipping me, because I was really into sci-fi, like Philip K. Dick, Robert Heinlein, etc. And then she, like, gave me, like, Shirley Jackson, and then she gave me a lot of the modern, like, contemporary, I would say literary horror writers. So like she gave me like Michael Weehunt's collection, Beautiful Pastures, I think. And now he has a new novel coming out. So check that out, Night Jars. There we go. So Michael Weehunt, and then she like showed me Brian Evanson, and then I think we both kind of discovered John Langan at the same time, The Fisherman, and then Stephen Graham Jones, and it just kept going. Like and it just exploded. As a kid, I loved horror. I saw as a kid when the Blair Witch Project came out on VHS. My dad, I guess, got a copy, and he pretended he got it from like an estate sale or a garage sale. He said, "Hey, I got this tape from this garage sale down the street. You want to check it out?" And he like had it forwarded like past the intro, so like there's nothing, right?
Oh, that is so devious.
And I watched the whole thing with him without. I don't think my mom was there, but I watched the whole thing with him. I was just like traumatized. I was like, "Oh my god, what the hell did you find, Dad?"
What is this?
And then I didn't know, because there was no internet back then, right? It was like,
Right.
it was in theaters in 1999, and it came out probably 2000. So it was like 2000, like there's barely internet. And I thought it was real until I started talking to kids at school or something. And they're like, that's fake, right? And I was like, huh?
Wow. What a trick.
Yeah. So I've always been kind of connected to horror films, to scary, weird stuff. My first waking memory when I was 4 years old was Halloween. My parents brought me across the street from my grandma's, and the neighbors over there, it was a nice wife and then a husband I don't think I ever saw. And then she opens the door, big bowl of candy. I'm just like, I think I'm in my mom's arms. And then she's like, "Hello, happy Halloween." And then, I'm not talking. But then out pop, from the other side of the door, the husband in like a pig mask and like overalls and shit.
No.
And snorting, like oinking. And it was like, it was like a humanoid pig. And I was like, "What the fuck?" I didn't say that, but I definitely thought that. And I still have the visual memory when I was 4. And so my first memory is literally Halloween. And now I'm in this, I've been into it, since 2020, where were we? 2016. So yeah, I know it's a little late, I still have much to read. But I've always watched the movies, I think I always just kind of thought books were like too smart for me. So I was like, I could do the movies, so I really, I've watched a lot of movies, but I have a lot of catching up to do with books.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite subgenre or trope or element of horror that you just, anytime it's in something, you just keep coming back to it? Like for me, I love a haunted house. I just find something really fascinating about haunted liminal spaces. So is there anything that speaks to you within the genre or a subgenre that you love?
Man, I would say anything to do with possession, because that freaks me out a lot. When you lose, bodily autonomy, your thoughts and all that, your motor skills and all that. I think partly, like Stephen Graham Jones says in the intro to Never Whistle at Night, natives hate possession stories because it's kind of like the last thing to be colonized by settlers is your own body. But then also I kind of fear that I think on both sides of my family, we have a lot of brain stuff when we're older. Mm-hmm. Like my grandma just got diagnosed with Parkinson's, and my grandpa had Alzheimer's. And so I'm always fearing like kind of like losing your identity and your motor skills and all that. Mm-hmm. So, possession really gets me. And then also trippy horror. Anything that's like drug induced or similar, something that's going on, where it's kind of fun because you get to like, is this real? Is this not? Is this just the hallucination? Is it the drugs? Is it really a 12-foot goose? I don't know.
Did you ever see Climax, the Jeff Barnaby film?
Oh, okay. I'll see this. Climax.
With the caveat, we've done it here on the Crypt. This is a film that an ex of mine turned me on to a long time ago, because we had watched the new Suspiria, and then he was like, "You should watch this." The caveat is this film is like super fucked up. But if you like drug-induced, what the fuck is going on, and the way it's shot is so trippy. That's like one of my favorite ones to recommend, and also not recommend because it's so fucked up kind of thing.
No, I get that.
Yeah,
I mean, we probably both grew up with like the terrible torture videos online, and right. So kind of desensitized a little bit, sadly.
Yeah, it's that and the original Speak No Evil, the Scandinavian version that I'm like,
Oh,
watch it one time. But
I didn't know that
also,
was a remake or
it is a remake.
okay.
I haven't seen the new one, but I stand by the Scandinavian version. Just my dad is Norwegian, and everyone who saw that
Hmm.
film was like, why the fuck is this like nice Scandinavian family not leaving this terrible situation? I was like, you don't get Scandinavian culture because it's really polite. And if you can kind of
Gotcha.
go
Okay.
into it with that mentality, that's really psychological. There is some like trigger warning kid stuff in it.
Okay.
But those two
So
are
probably
the
one to
two.
watch alone.
Yeah, I would not watch it with your wife. I really wouldn't.
Gotcha. I'll watch it with headphones.
Yeah, based off of what you had said about her reaction with Blood Quantum, probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
But those are the two that I recommend where I'm like, this is the fucked up trippy stuff that I like recommend watching once.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add that to my list for sure. Sounds good.
I'll flip the script and ask, are there any films and books that you recommend that you're like, if people who are interested in horror, what should they watch and read aside from Never Whistle at Night and Blood Quantum?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, like earlier, definitely look out or pre-order Matilda Zeller's expanded short story. So she wrote Krishtuka, right? That opened the first anthology, and now it's coming out. It Looks Like You in the Dark, October 13th, maybe. I forget. But man, that's a great one. It's rich in history, culture, real stuff. You know, her village. It's great. It's lovely. Let's see. Hole in the Sky. This is kind of more slightly, you know, if it's a spectrum, more on the side of like sci-fi thriller, but really it's horrific in ways. Yeah, Hole in the Sky. That is by Daniel H. Wilson. And if you know anything, if you're into sci-fi and know of like Michael Crichton, who wrote like Jurassic Park and such, Daniel is basically the person to go to for writing within the Crichton like estate. So he was like allowed, kind of like given the green stamp to write the sequel to the Andromeda Strain.
Oh, cool.
And the sequel he wrote was like amazing, really good. I can't think of the name of it, sorry, Daniel. But that one, Hole in the Sky, is crazy. It's actually being made, I think, for Netflix into a movie by Sterling Harjo, who directed Reservation Dogs. I always say Reservoir Dogs, of course.
I know, yeah.
Reservation Dogs and The Lowdown, but that's going to be a crazy one. I'm trying to think. Movies, shoot. I'm drawing a blank here.
That's okay. I know it's like you've seen so much that you're like, have I ever seen a movie?
I know, right? Yeah, I'll probably, you know, if you follow me, I'll tweet something out.
Yeah.
I guess not tweet, but you know,
Yeah.
I'll blue sky something. I'll thread something.
Whatever the equivalent verb is.
Yeah.
Do you have any? We know that you're currently working on the release of this part 2, and then now there's talks about part 3. Are there any other things that you're currently working on, or that, you know, we have the blurb that's been going in the chat and popping up on the screen, but things that you want kind of people to know about you, any dream projects that you're, you know, kind of bandying about that you can talk about?
Yeah. So it took some time, but I started building this website. I call it the Native Horror Index. So it's nativehorrorindex.com. And that was kind of a year of on and off work of kind of building the site from scratch, sort of. But it's basically a directory for any creative Native or Indigenous person in the horror realm. So if you're Native or Indigenous and you're doing a horror podcast, if you're a horror writer, horror director of films, what have you, like tabletop RPGs, anything horror related, music, you know, you can make a profile on the site and kind of have your listing, your details, all the things, any links that go to important stuff. And I put a call out, like, I think it was like last July, maybe. And I said, hey, anyone want to be a part of this, have a listing, send me your details. And I made like a special email. And I think about 60 people sent me their info, and I got it all in there. There's their picture. It's so it's kind of like a native horror, like MySpace. Although is there like no commenting or forums or anything, but you can go on there and like find people by their nation. I think by their closest major city. There's like filtering and all this kind of stuff, and it's really a project that I really wanted to do. It works in three ways. It can be industry facing, so if like someone's making a movie and they want someone of this certain nation to be a screenwriter or be a producer or be an actor, or if they're trying to I don't know, there's a lot of, I have all the roles on there for anything in film, so all the way down to the what's the term, I don't know, the staff, no, not staff,
Production
I can't think of it.
assistants.
Yeah, anyone in production, basically.
Yeah.
And so I put that out there, and I would say it's also for other natives to discover other natives, and like, oh, I didn't know this person did this, let me check this out. So it kind of like helps support in the broad, indigenous community, as well as non-natives, just being like, I want to support some natives, outside of November, because we have Native American Heritage Month, and then we're ignored a lot of the rest of the year, right? I want to go check out this podcast, or I want to read this book or what have you. And so I was, working on that, and I think I announced it like in May. So it's been out a couple months, and I try to post about it here and there. But other than that, I don't think, it's like word of mouth. You kind of share it around. And so that was a fun project, and I'll still be updating it here and there. But now I have it set where people can just go on there and create their own listing. And then, to kind of cut out any spam or weirdos, I had to approve it. So that's a fun project I worked on. The Land Has Spoken is a horror play that I co-wrote with Andrea L. Rogers, who wrote Man-Made Monsters. And I believe she has a vampiric kind of horror novel coming this year, might be next year. And we wrote this, it's kind of like a short, like week-long residency in Olympia, Washington, 2024. And then I never written a play before. And it was a wild ride, and we got to write like in the space of the theater. And we had an Airbnb, and it was pretty cool. And it opened that October. They actually had money in the budget to fly us both out there again. And we got to go to both performances of it. It was it premiered in Olympia at the Center for the Cultural Arts there. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was like 500 something.
Wow.
Tickets, like I assumed like, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 people, who knows? Like there wasn't a ton of advertising, but it was like over 500 people. And it was just shocking to like be in the audience and just like witness it all.
Okay.
And then thank you. And then the next night was like almost 800 or something.
Wow.
And that was in Bellingham, Washington.
Yeah.
And that was a bigger theater, to be honest. And I think they had a little bit of advertising, but that was amazing. And so I bring this up because we're currently doing rewrites to kind of intensify the horror.
Yeah.
And just kind of update little things here and there. And it's actually touring 3 Hawaiian islands in October.
Oh my God.
So I believe it's going to, I forget the order, but I know Oahu's last, but it's Big Island and Maui and Oahu.
Wow.
And we're lucky enough that we can't go out there for all 3, but Andrea's going to, I think, one of the islands, I forget. So she gets to be there for that. And then my wife and I actually got married in Oahu on the beach
wow.
in
Oh my God.
2021. And we get to return. So we get to go to the last performance. And it's going to be either literally on Halloween, or because Oahu is so crazy about Halloween, it might be November 1st.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Wow.
But working on that. Outside of horror, last year I signed on as a contributing editor for Counterpoint Press, which is a literary indie publisher out of Berkeley and kind of New York City. And I basically signed on with them because I talked to the SVP of the whole book group and I said, hey, I would love this opportunity, but can I just tailor everything I do around Native or Indigenous writers? And he said, yeah, you could do that.
Wow.
So my whole role there is basically to get submissions from agents, or you don't have to be agented either, but send me a submission of your manuscript. And they are more indie literature, like literary. So I've had quite a few horror ones come my way because I'm known for horror.
Yeah.
And I have to sadly turn them away because they don't publish that kind of stuff. But I have, last year I acquired 2 works, a story collection and a novel. And so both are announced now. So going back to collections by Amber Blazer Wardzala, her mom is Kimberly Blazer. And so she's a very well-known poet in Indigenous circles.
Wow.
And she was the former poet laureate of Wisconsin.
Oh.
And she submitted a short story collection, her first kind of collection of prose. So moving from the poetry world into prose is one of my favorite things that poets can do because they write so beautifully. And I love that collection. It's called Red Ants. And that's going to come out from Counterpoint, I believe October 18th. So that's coming out. It's already edited now. And then also I acquired a book from Brian Lee Young, who is mostly known for kid lit, like Healer of the Water Monster, and I forget the second one. There's a third one coming out. This is his first adult book, because he also just did a YA novel that's really important called Shards of Silence. And so he's a Dene, or as many people know, Navajo writer, and I think filmmaker too. And I'm currently editing, like literally right now, the novel for right now called Translator. It might change, but it's basically a murder mystery around a Navajo code talker.
Wow.
And basically an old 1950s Western show that was really popular. It kind of gets a revival later on. And there's something that he embeds in the old footage, something he says that has a big dark secret in it. There's a whole thing that's going crazy about trying to find out what the message was. And then there's murders and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm working on. Aside from that, I mean, we're also trying to get Never Whistle at Night made into a TV show.
Yeah.
So we're currently doing the pitch deck for that and trying to get all our ducks lined up and do it the right way. Because we had a lot of interest with the first book to turn into a TV show, but there's 26 writers, all with their own rights. So I guess our hands were kind of tied behind their back, and it was kind of a non-starter. Our film TV agent said, because producers don't want to deal with that many people, separate rights holders. So we changed the contracts for part 2, and part 3 will follow the same, but we kind of have like managerial rights in a way that lets us kind of package the whole thing into maybe a TV show, and still splitting it greatly where the writer gets like pretty much anything that happens, and we get like maybe a little tiny percent for like just like doing all the work. But yeah, it's pretty wild. So we'll hope that does come to fruition, but we know it's pretty crazy.
Sure. Yeah. Wow, you have a lot on your plate. That is incredible. It's just so incredible.
And a 2-year-old.
And a 2-year-old, yeah, and San Diego Comic-Con, which is huge, and all of these things. I saw who
Yeah, lots
you
of
were
travel
on.
this year.
Yeah, yeah. You had some cool horror folks on the same panel as you. I saw CJ Lead was on there. I'm a huge CJ Lead fan, so that was
Oh
really
yeah,
cool.
Siege. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
Clay MacLeod Chapman.
yeah.
Um, Also pretty crazy. I'm on a panel with Mel Brooks' son, who I love Mel Brooks and growing up with his movies.
So
So Max
wild.
Brooks,
Yeah, yeah.
World War Z. So that's crazy to me.
Wow. Wow. Man, congrats. This is all just like such incredible stuff that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Super exciting. We're going to start winding down a little bit here, but I wanted to
Yeah.
ask one specific question and then some like rapid fire, what I call my Inside the Actors Studio questions, if you ever watched that show.
Got
Um,
you. Yeah.
but first, what do you want people to know about Indigenous horror and specifically your perspective on horror that maybe, just from reading your work or from our conversation today that maybe they don't necessarily know, but something that you would want folks to know?
I would like folks to know that it's multifaceted. There's not really a widely accepted like definition of it, but I think pretty much every story I've read is very important in different ways, and that you shouldn't also seek Indigenous horror or Native horror to just get access, I guess, to monsters or themes or places that maybe are unknown to you in a way. So like you're collecting for like a bestiary, you know?
Yeah,
And I
good
think
point.
that a lot of people come to our stories and books and such to kind of extract something out in a weird way. So that's kind of happened with a lot of reviews of Never Whistle at Night. Not all of them, but a good noticeable amount is that they think like all of it's just folklore, however you want to label it, and they get upset or mad that not all Indigenous horror has to do with like bows and arrows and caves and
Right.
monsters that we can't speak of and such. But yeah, Indigenous horror is multifaceted. It's contemporary. It can explore the past, future, everything, because time's a circle. But it's definitely pretty much always at least saying something about something. And I think it's, critical to like look at it, look at horror from our eyes and see, it's not all going to be the same either because there's so many different tribes and nations. But you can delve into different stories and books and see what is, going on in our communities, what's going on with our lives, what happened with our ancestors, learn some history sometimes. But also, our stories are just stories in a way. We don't want you to treat them as like, historiographies or like works of like philosophical work. Our stories are also kind of singular in a way because it's just me, this one person of this one tribe of this, this huge amount of people. And I don't represent my whole nation or tribe. And so, just take the story as for what it is. And one more thing, a lot of people don't like that a lot of Native or Indigenous horror stories just end. But that is kind of a style that a lot of us have grown up with and become accustomed to because of traditional stories, in that the story doesn't owe you a nice, pretty red or pink bow on top at the end and explain everything, or not even explain everything, but at least wrap it all up perfectly. Because a
Yeah.
lot of our stories, they either, wherever it's going to start, it might start near the beginning or in the middle or at the end and then just kind of cut off. And then the rest of it is just going to needle around in your brain. And that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I go into it knowing that, or taking that with you and leaving certain things away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that.
Yeah,
I have some rapid fire questions for you.
sure.
What are you reading right now?
Oh my gosh. Translated by Brian Lee Young and nothing else.
That's all I'm reading. Yeah. What is next up on your film watch list?
Oh, Climax.
Hell yeah. Let me know.
Gotta watch
Message
that.
me afterwards.
For sure, for sure.
We talked about your favorite horror trope. What is your least favorite horror trope?
Oh, shoot. Probably the wise Indian trope, where we're used as kind of like a stepping stone for the white protagonist to live, and then we either die or like we just go off screen.
Yeah, it's like ta-da.
Yeah.
God, yeah, yeah. That is an exhausting and dumb trope.
Mm-hmm.
What would your role be in a horror film if we were to like do the classical teenage lineup of horror?
Yeah. I like to think that I'm a brave person, but I don't think I am. So I wouldn't be leading the pack with the machete. Although I wouldn't also be the person that says, "Hey, what's that noise in the dark?" and go follow it. Or I wouldn't open that, book that's made of skin.
No.
I would kind of like probably be the rational person that no one listens to.
Sure.
Because I'm always trying to rationalize things and make sense of the world.
Yeah.
And I also have a lot of teachings, back then and growing up, but you don't do certain things.
Yep, absolutely. I'm right there with you. What are your top, you can say for now, it doesn't have to be of all time, but it can be. What are your top 3 horror films?
Oh man.
I know. I'm really sorry.
I would say John Carpenter's The Thing, probably number 1. Yeah, I recently was actually associate producer for the documentary that just came out.
Ooh, hell yeah.
And
that's awesome.
I have all the merch behind me somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great documentary. But yeah, definitely The Thing. And shoot, like I guess more modern Hereditary, even though it's kind of like everyone's favorite. It's just so well made.
So well done.
Yeah. Although I'm still kind of curious about the peanut scene, the peanut allergy. It doesn't really make sense, that just that one little part. If you know anyone with allergies, like I'm not sure if it would have went down that way, but everything else pretty dang well made. Shoot. Oh man. I'm kind of a horror sci-fi guy, so man, Alien is really up there. It's both kind of a slasher / haunted house narrative, right? Just in space.
Yeah. Yes.
But damn, shoot. And then Event Horizon I really like. R.I.P. Sam Neill. Oh man, there's just so many. I love the remake of The Blob. Just for fun, just like always in the background,
Yeah.
I love the practical effects. I guess that's why I love The Thing as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's more than 3 now, but
That's okay.
I could talk about it forever.
Yeah. That's great. I can't wait to talk more about these things.
Yeah.
Do you have a top 3 favorite books? They can be horror or otherwise.
Ooh, Stephen Graham Jones is definitely up there. I thought The Only Good Indians was a masterpiece, and I still think that.
Yeah.
I haven't actually read Off the Reservation, which is it's not really a sequel, but it's within the same world, and it happens, I believe, afterward. So I have to check that one out. But The Only Good Indians is definitely up there. But in a way, because of his craft and everything, I even think The Buffalo Hunter has surpassed The Only Good Indians in craft and the way the story just like unfolded and the epistolary, way that he told it and the different, perspectives. And I got to blurb that one and it was like amazing.
So cool.
Like 6 stars, So Stephen's definitely up there. I would say if we wanted to kind of please the fans, Stephen King, The Shining. Yeah, I I just said I didn't read it as a kid, but I read it when I was, 26, and it still kind of blew me away compared to the movie. It's so much better, in my opinion. And even like connected to that, I get to be the one native writer in the forthcoming The Shining anthology from Jamie Flanagan that's coming out next summer. Views from the Overlook. So I love The Shining book. That was like really well told. And I've read it, I think, 3 times now. And then, I would say The Haunting of Hill House.
Oof,
Shirley
yes.
Jackson.
Yeah, I just finished that earlier this year for the first time.
Yeah. It's got like one of the best openers. Yeah, special book right there.
Oh, cool. I love that. My last of the rapid fire questions, well, sort of. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word.
Yes.
How about ho-ho. So in Arapaho, it means thank you.
I love
And
that.
also like signals like ending of something, kind of like ho-ho.
Wow. That's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to promote? We talked about a lot of stuff today, so
I don't think there's other stuff coming out, but it'll come later. But yeah, this was really fun. Thanks for having me.
thank you so much for being part of this. This was so exciting. I've been buzzing for like a month since we had talked about doing this. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
Of course.
Everybody do check out Never Whistle at Night. Part 2, Back for Blood, is coming out in 29 days on August 18th, I believe is what you said.
Yeah.
So check out that one as well. Support your local libraries. Buy books from indie authors and do all those things. Go read something, go watch something from Shane. Thank you again. This was so wonderful, and I hope that I will get to do something like this with you again in the future. If you're in San Diego, go say hi to Shane. He will be at SDCC this coming weekend. Check out his socials. It's going to be a really good time. So
yeah, I'll be
Thank
there
you.
Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday.
Hell yeah. Sounds great. Thank you so much, Shane. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.